Hey everybody, welcome back to the Time Pass podcast. This is your host, Ashika. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. If you haven't done so already, please like me on Facebook at Time Pass Podcast. Follow me on Instagram at timepass_podcast. And check out the YouTube channel where you can watch all the episodes of the Time Pass podcast. If you are an auditory listener, wherever you are tuning into the Time Pass podcast, wherever you tune into podcasts, please make sure you are liked, followed, or subscribed on your listening platform of choice. All right, you guys, Happy New Year. So, I feel like I haven't recorded for a long time. But I realized that's because I didn't record last week. There wasn't a new episode last week, and the reason being is 2023. I don't know how I feel about you. I really don't know how I feel about you. It has been a wet, emotional roller coaster of the first half of the month, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit. So it's funny. I'm in Northern California. I'm in the Sacramento area, and we have had atmospheric river after atmospheric river. Last week, there wasn't a new episode released because there were power outages, flooding. My power here in my home went out at least twice last week that I know of, maybe 3 times. And with everything going on, and I just have had emotional turmoil going on inside that has really required me to sit and think with my thoughts. And I think, I don't know if I knew how important what I did on New Year's Eve, how I started my New Year's Eve. I didn't know if I didn't know that would be something, that experience would be something that I would reflect on to deal with these internal struggles and battles that I have been having. So let's take it to New Year's Eve. You guys, time passers, if you listen to the show, you know that I broke my ankle last May in 2022, and I'm still on the recovering end of that. I just got out of a cast and got a screw pulled out in October of last year, so just a couple months ago. And I'm still very much on recovery. I have to wear compression socks. I have to wear a really tight compression brace when I work out. It's an ongoing issue, and it is not 100% yet. Some days are good, some days are bad, some days I'm limping, some days I'm not. It's just the way it is. As I go through this recovery. Well, I have a friend who goes to the same gym that I do, and she had recommended that I do a cold plunge. So those of you that don't know what a cold plunge is, it's basically getting into cold water. There are cold plunge pools, if you want to call them plunge pools. Ice baths, kind of same concept, and I believe the water is anywhere from 59 degrees to 39 degrees is the range of temperature for the water. Obviously 39 degrees being the lowest temperature. And she actually works at this place that manufactures these pools, and invited me to go take a plunge. And I'm up for anything. I am very open-minded. I'm an open-minded individual. I'd like to say I try almost anything at least once. And I had been reading about cold plunge pools and the benefits of it, and mainly because it's supposed to really benefit the inflammation of it, inflammation. And so I thought it would really benefit my inflammation of my ankle. And so I set this up, and that's how I started my New Year's Eve. I woke up, I got ready, and I drove down to where she works and took the plunge. And I not only did it once, but I did it twice. So here's the cool thing about it. The benefits of the cold plunge, there's a lot more than just inflammation. It lowers damaged tissue temperature. It releases endorphins. It constricts your blood vessels. It reduces swelling and inflammation. It stabilizes your blood pressure. It relieves muscle spasms. It numbs your nerve endings for immediate pain relief. So like if you're in pain. It promotes circulation to injured tissues. It strengthens your immune system. It minimizes muscle soreness. It speeds up your healing. Like, there's so many benefits to cold plunges, and I fucking loved it. So I went, and I didn't realize they also had a sauna there, which I highly recommend, and I did more research on the hot and cold sauna cold plunge effects after I had this experience, and I just saw a lot more of the same of what I just rattled off to you. But something about putting your body through those two extremes, like just for lack of better words, it jump starts your system into doing all these beneficial things for your body. So it was great. So I got there, they had 2 plunge pools, and one was set at 54 degrees and the other one was set at 39 degrees. And my friend was like, hey, why don't you try out the 54 degree one? It's your very first time. And I was like, okay, cool, done. So everybody changes, we get all changed up, and they also have a sauna right there. So it's like 2 pool plunges and then a sauna. So I get in the 54 degree pool. It's cold, and my friend, she's coaching me through it, and she's like, you know, it's a mental thing. And for me, that was a big part of it. Like, I wanted to know if mentally I could do it. Could I mentally just focus on something else? And it's almost like a meditation a little bit is how I handled it. And a little bit of just like, if the water's still cold when you get in, like, you don't dip your toe in or anything. You just climb in and sink down. Like, that's the only way to do it, because otherwise you're going to psych yourself out. You're not going to want to get in. It's not fun. You don't want to get into this water. And so the way I handled it was like, I wanted to know if I could mentally do this. And I think from all the research that I've done, I think the optimum time to stay in a cold plunge pool is like 3 minutes and no more than 10 minutes. So it's like, I think all of the research that I found has said like 3 minutes is like the optimum time. Some people would like to stay for longer, but they say you shouldn't go longer than 10 minutes so that you don't get hypothermia or any other serious injuries or illness. So I didn't know how long I was going to stay in this thing, and I got in, and when you get in, you cannot think about anything else except for breathing and how fucking cold it is. That's all you can think about. Any emotional distress, any family problems, any money problems, any work problems, any other problems you're having in your life, bloop, out the window. Because all you're focused on is surviving this. This is hurting me. This is cold. This is painful. How am I going to get through this? And so I love that place. I think sometimes that's also why I like reading, is because it's an escape. See, when I read, I'm completely engrossed in a book, and anything else that I have going on in my life is now out of my mind because I am completely in this world. And that is why I enjoy doing things like that. And so I think for the plunge pool, it was like I was in the pool and not thinking about anything else. So I had a great time. I got in the water, and it's so funny because, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm kind of meditating, and the way I handled it was I was sitting in there and I was like, okay, it's not that cold. Just pretend it's warm. Tell yourself that the water's warm. I kid you not, I started to feel like the water was getting warm up around my shoulders and my like upper torso. And I even told my friend this. I was like, when I got out, I was like, I felt like the water was starting to get warm. And she's like, I don't know what kind of mental jujitsu you did to feel like the water's warm, because I guarantee you it was not. It's all temperature controlled, you guys. It stays at 54 degrees. There's no changing it. But I was actually in that 54 degree pool for 5 minutes, easily. And I could have stayed longer. She kind of pulled me out. She was like, hey, you want to come get into the sauna now? And I was like, well, sure. Like, 54 degrees for me was not a challenge. And so as I go to the sauna to kind of, warm up and let those muscles, have that one extreme to the other effect, she suggests that we double plunge. So we plunge again. And I'm like, okay, cool. But this time I'm going to do the 39-degree pool. And I did it. I was in there for a minute, a little over a minute maybe. And then I got out. And there's a huge difference in temperatures of the two pools for sure. I definitely felt it more. The difference in temperature was definitely very obvious to me, having been in the 54-degree pool for so long and then now getting into the 39-degree pool. I want to say it when I go back, because I'm definitely doing this again. When I go back, I will stick with the colder degree pool, because to me, the 54-degree pool was not enough of a challenge. I am somebody who likes a challenge, and I'm a little disappointed in myself for only staying in there for a minute or so. I wish I could have done at least 2 or 3 minutes in that colder temp pool. So now I know moving forward, that's what I need. That's where I want to be, because to me, there's just something about conquering your fears and that mental strength, like exercising that mental resilience and that mental strength. And it's the sense of, can I do this? And I just feel like our minds are so strong, and you just have to train it. It's emotional resilience, right? And I did a whole episode on resilience just a few weeks ago. So go check that out. But anyway, I just think the way that you deal with these sorts of challenges and pressures, it builds your mental strength, and it gives you the capacity to then deal with problems. Because I'm stressing myself out, my body out on purpose, and having to deal with it mentally and wrap my head around it, when outside stressors stress me out, my body and mind already knows what to do. I already know I can deal with it. And I think that's a huge thing. And so guys, I did this because I wanted to heal. I did it because it sounded like something really fun to do. I was curious, and I'm really focused on getting my strength back in my ankle in 2023. And so that's why I did this. But I didn't know that I would look back on this experience over the last several days to help guide me through some emotional stressors that I have had. And so, let's get into that a little bit. Let's get into that a little bit. It's so funny because I know, like I said, I didn't do an episode last week because of the storms or whatever, but I don't think I was ready to do an episode. I had an episode planned. I was gonna do it with Fabian, and Fabian and I are still gonna do that episode. I'm just not ready to record that episode yet. But it's in the works. It's on the list, but I'm not ready for that episode yet. But you guys know, like my art imitates my life. So this is my art, so to say. And I'm very upfront and honest with you guys about what's going on in my life. You guys have heard a ton of stuff about me. And I have something going on, and you've heard a little bit about it, but it's kind of become this enigma to me. And I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't want to talk about it because it's ongoing. Like I don't think there's a resolution yet there. So let's get into this a little bit. So if you've been listening to the episode last year, the last few episodes, I have talked about how I've been enjoying getting to know someone, kind of talking to somebody, getting to know them, and really enjoying that process. Actually, the last episode I actually talked about how this man has actually I finally understood that quote, if he wanted to, he would, because he demonstrated that to me. And also, you know, he's been somebody that has actually made an effort to put a smile on my face, which I don't think I've ever had happen for me before. So knowing those things, those are like huge, like green flags, right? Like those are like huge green flags. They make a girl feel really special. So that's one thing, right? And I've been talking to this man for about 2 months. And so there's that, you know, it's like, okay, like this is happening, like whatever, like how, I don't know, 2 months is a long time, but also not. So it was kind of just like in this weird getting to know you stage or whatever. But knowing myself, you know, guys, I've been single for so long, and I know what I don't want, and I also know what I do want. And for me, what I'm looking for is actual intimacy with a person. Like, I struggle with being vulnerable with people. Funny enough, I'm a really private person. I can't even say that without laughing, but like, I'm a really private person. Unless you listen to this show, you wouldn't know half the shit about me that I tell you guys on this show. Like, that's why my family listens to the show, because I'm a very private person. Because when I am dealing with something, I deal with it on my own. I deal with things on my own, in my own time, in my own way. And unless you're my best friend, unless you're Fabian, like, you know everything. But even sometimes, he even knows this. Like, he'll know if I'm having a rough day, and then if I'm quiet, because that's what happens, is in order for me to reflect and think, I withdraw. And so if I'm quiet, you know, he'll reach out and be like, what are you doing? Like, because he knows that I'm probably struggling that day. But, you know, I'm a private person. And so people often don't know what's really going on with me. And for me to have intimacy with somebody, I want to be able to be vulnerable. I want to be able to like be super in my feminine energy and, you know, my inner child, and just like, I just want to be able to be in that place with my person. And so that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody to create that safe space where I can be that person, because I don't get to be that person, like, ever. I don't. My childhood wasn't like that, and my past relationships haven't been like that. So it's great. Being a strong, independent woman is fucking fantastic. I love my life. I like who I am. But I don't need somebody to be strong. I'm already that. I need somebody who I feel safe enough around to be weak and feminine and childlike and just like me, if that makes any sense. And so, you know, this thing, you know, it's been going on for a couple months. And because of this person's behaviors, you know, he pursued me. He would reach out to me, and I reciprocated. I am attracted to this man. I found myself catching feelings for this man, and he made me feel like he kind of created this safe space where I could be vulnerable. And so even though I was terrified of showing my vulnerability to this man, I realized I was gonna have to do it if I wanted what I wanted. If my end goal is to have, you know, intimacy with somebody in my relationships, then I'm going to have to, be vulnerable. And so as much as I hate being vulnerable, I realized my fear of vulnerability wasn't going to go away, but I was just going to have to do it afraid. I was just going to have to do it and be terrified of doing it while I was doing it. And so, 2 months isn't a long time. We don't live in the same area. So we haven't gone on a date, nothing like that. So, I feel like as much as I could with where we were, I was showing him pieces of myself that I don't show other people, and to me, that's a big deal. I don't realize if he realized that, but to me, that's a big deal because it's really hard for me to be vulnerable. And I think I had even told him that, it's really hard for me to be vulnerable and not just want to run away because I realize I like you. And so I was showing him pieces of myself that the world does not get to see, that my family doesn't even get to see. I was trying to foster an environment that could further lead to more vulnerability and, if everything went well in the future, who knows. But, that's kind of where I was at. And New Year's Eve, I did this plunge thing, right? And we spent a lot of time just connecting with each other on New Year's Eve. And I said a couple really vulnerable things. And maybe to him, they weren't vulnerable sounding, but for me to say them, knowing how fearful I was of saying those things, but because he had made me feel safe, I said them. And they were vulnerable statements. I think one was me flat out telling him, hey, I appreciate that you make an effort to put a smile on my face. I don't fucking say that stuff. I don't say stuff like that. It's very I think it's nice for a man to feel when he's making an effort that it was important for me to know that I appreciated, for me to tell him that I appreciated it and that I wasn't taking it for granted. But I'm such a hard ass. I don't tell people things like that. And so it was really hard for me to actually say something like that to him. And then I think earlier that morning I had said something about the behavior of the week and how I was enjoying his presence that week in my life. And, everything was fine. Everything, in my perspective, everything was fine. But then the next day and the day after, he just kind of disappeared. And I really struggled with that because I've had these horrible relationships and where these guys have just disappeared on me, and then they come back and then they disappear, and then it's like a ping pong thing. And so for me, that was a huge trigger. To not hear from someone for 2 days is my brain's going 100 miles an hour. I'm an overthinker. My brain is going 100 miles an hour. I'm like, what's going on? But then also, because I have had these horrible experiences in the past, I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. So I'm just closing up and clamming up because now I no longer feel like I have that safe space anymore. And now I feel holy shit, I shouldn't have said the things I did. And then I'm freaking out. And then a couple days later, he disappears for a couple days, comes back, acts like nothing happened. And I can't do that, I'm still very confused and very hurt by the actions. Yet I don't want to say anything because it's not my place to say something. I'm not the one that acted weird. I was normal, just doing my thing. And I understand, shit happens. When I, disappear, I fucking tell people, hey, and sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes it could be an emergency. Sometimes it could be something really heavy you're dealing with. And so you can't say like, hey, I need some time to myself beforehand. But then when you reach out to someone after the fact, you need to be like, oh, hey, sorry, I was busy. Or, hey, I had some stuff going on. How are you doing? Sorry, I haven't been in touch. How are you doing? Address it. It's a fucking elephant in the room. Address the issue. But you're not addressing it. I'm a Libra. I don't like confrontation. I'm not going to address it. And it's not my fucking place to address it. It really isn't. So, I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, this is going to happen. Not going to happen. It's just like a weirdness for a week. And during this whole time, I'm just like thinking about this, and I'm like, what's okay, like reevaluating everything, being like the overthinker, right? Reevaluating everything. Well, is this person really interested in me? Maybe they're not interested in me. Maybe this is just like a friend thing. Like, I don't know. The fact that there's so many outlying, unspoken things between us is not good, And then that brings up that, like, this person told me they wanted to have a conversation. We've yet to have that conversation. Like, okay, like, what's going on? I don't like not knowing what's going on. I don't like feeling confused. And I'm a Libra. I like to be balanced. If you're throwing me off balance, I'm stressed, and I don't like that. So it's been a weird time. It's been a really weird time for me. And, part of me, so it's just been weird since then. And then currently, neither one of us has reached out to each other for several days now. And so obviously, like, I'm very triggered by this. And the old me, and even the me now, I had to really sit and think and kind of sit on my hands, because I don't want to, haste makes waste. Like, I don't want to take any action, without thinking it through all the way. And I think women in particular, we're nurturers, and we want to fix things. On top of it, me being who I am, I don't like it if I feel like somebody doesn't like me for some reason. I'm like, what's going on? And so part of it is like, I want to reach out. I want to communicate. And I'm like, hey, what's wrong? Things have been weird. Is everything okay? Like, are you good? Like, I don't know what's going on, because that's the thing, right? You don't communicate. So I don't know what's going on. Are you not interested anymore? Have you met somebody new? Do you have something going on in your life? Is work hectic? Are you just taking time for yourself? Like, what is it? I don't know, because there's been no communication on it. So part of me just wants to jump in and fix it. Like, let's fix this. Let me just figure out, because also part of it is like, I just want to, like, if I ask what's going on, maybe I'll get a direct answer, and maybe it'll be like, hey, I'm just not interested in this connection anymore. Great, I can move on then, And so I'm thinking about all this, and I'm, I want to fix it. I want to do this. And then it's like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And so all I could do was withdraw. That's all I needed to do. That's all I knew how to do, is to withdraw and really give it some thought. And you guys, it's not easy, right? Like, yeah, I talk about all this stuff. I'm like the great advice giver, right? Like, listen to the episodes. I give the best advice. But when I have to take it's very different, right? I still struggle with these things, like we all do. Relationships aren't easy, and I still struggle with all these feelings, and I don't make the right choices all the time. But what I have found is I need to be patient with myself and with my choices also. And so, I spent some time just alone, reflecting, and those days, they're not pretty days. They're days of me listening to music, reading, crying, singing. Like this is how I process things, you know, like, because your old fears come up, right? I mentioned this on the podcast a lot, but I talk about it, right? Like if you are having a strong emotional reaction to something, ask yourself why. And so when I ask myself why, you know, the old shit comes up. And so yeah, that does get emotional. And then you start thinking about things and you're like, woe is me, right? Woe is me. And, you know, I just realized that through these past relationships I've had since I've been divorced, they were really toxic relationships where I was being ghosted, and then people would just jump jump right back into my life, and I would just welcome them back with open arms and became a fucking doormat. And I was incredibly hurt in the end. And for me, processing those relationship fails and dealing with that emotional baggage, I realized that communication is a huge thing for me in any sort of connection or relationship. And so that's kind of like a boundary for me. Like, if you're gonna be in my life, I need you to be communicative. I talk to you guys. Like, I'm a communicative person. It's in my job title. I have a podcast. Like, you can't get me to shut up. Like, I communicate. I realize not everybody communicates the same way, but I know for me, if I am going to have somebody in my life, I need them to be communicative with me. For the good, the bad, and the ugly. Whatever it is, I want to know. I want to know. And so it's kind of like I don't want to say, like, it's kind of like a deal breaker if someone isn't able to communicate what's going on with them or what their feelings are, or just like where they're at. Like, if you can't communicate to me, then that's like the basics of any relationship. If you can't communicate, then what are we doing? You know? And then I have to play devil's advocate, and I'm like, whoa, you can't pot kettle. You're not communicating either. And it's like, no, I'm not. So then I start to beat myself up, and then I feel bad, and then I'm like, well, you know, I really like this person. They did this, and they did this, and this is the first time I experienced these things, and they made me feel safe, and, you know, whatever it is. And then I'm like, oh, and I admire this person. I respect this person. You know, I'm attracted to this person, and they have all these things that I am looking for in a partner. And so then you start focusing on them and everything that they have, that you fucking forget who the fuck you are. Like, this is the thing. I feel like because this happens all the time in connections, right? Like, the energy shifts and someone's not putting in the effort anymore. Someone's not doing, you know, what they started out doing, and you know it's not good. And then us as women in particular, oftentimes we're like, no, but we want that thing. We want that person. So we want to chase after them and see what's wrong and try to fix it and try to talk about it and do all of that stuff. Meanwhile, fuck our feelings, right? Like, fuck our feelings. Fuck how their actions are making us feel. And we forget, like, did I just forget what I bring to the table? Why, just as much as I may think that this person has qualities that I want in a long-term relationship, hello, it is me. I have qualities. I have qualities also that are great. I know what I bring to the table. Like, where did that go? Like, all of a sudden, it was just, you know, be the martyr. Be the martyr and fix this. It has been my MO for years. I don't want that to be my MO anymore. I don't want to be the martyr. I don't want to fix it. Especially when I'm not saying I don't want to fix it. Of course, I would love to resolve this, but what I'm saying is, why does it always have to be me? It shouldn't. And furthermore, as I started, reflecting on all this, I started realizing I don't want to be the person and the only person fighting for this connection, And then I'm realizing I know what I bring to the table. And I think what I'm getting at is when I'm having those moments of, being a hermit, for lack of better words, that's really what I do. I go into hermit mode. And it really takes mental toughness to not fall back on your past behaviors, to not follow your patterns. It really takes a certain amount of mental toughness and emotional resilience to sit there and realize, yes, you're feeling triggered. Yes, you're feeling this way. Yes, you want to chase after this person, but you need to step out of your pattern and really focus on what qualities and character, who you are, what you bring to the table. You're a fucking catch. I'm a catch. Why am I chasing after somebody? I don't need to be. And so when I get to that point, then I'm like, okay, well, that person can feel the same. It's that place. You're at an impasse, right? Both people probably feel like, well, I'm not going to chase after somebody I don't know. Well, that's the thing, right? I don't know anything because this person doesn't communicate. So in my head, I'm thinking, I'm here. Like I'm not going to go chasing after you. And if that's what this person's thinking, then we're at an impasse. Like nothing's going to get resolved, so to say. And so then I start thinking further and I'm like, okay, what have I done in this connection? Have I been vulnerable? Yes. Have I tried to, move things further? Have I reciprocated energy? Yes. Okay. And then I look at their actions and I'm like, okay, this isn't the first time they've disappeared. Red flag. They wanted to communicate, said they were going to communicate, and still have yet to follow through with that. Red flag. And then it's like, this person has also showed me that if they wanted to, they would. They're fairly capable of reaching out and pursuing me because that's what they did. So now if they're not pursuing me, in my brain, not knowing anything else of what's going on, it's because they're no longer interested, or they have something going on, or they met somebody else, or whatever it is. The fact is that because this person is no longer taking action that I know that they are capable of taking, it's because they don't want to, right? That if he wanted to, he would. Also works the other way. If he doesn't want to, he's not going to. And so for me, knowing that when he wanted to, he did, he doesn't want to. That's why he's not doing it. And me knowing like where I was and how I was feeling and how connected I was to this individual, I don't feel I need to do anything. I was pretty genuine in all my communications. Genuine, vulnerable, nice. I'm me, So it's like I was able to use my emotional resilience and mental strength to pull me out of the place where I'm focused on the lack, right? And I want to chase. And it's really difficult to do that, y'all. I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but it's not easy. It's difficult to do that. And I pulled myself out of there, and this is how I feel as of this recording. Like, I don't know what's going on. Is this person just going to come back again later? Maybe. Or it's going to stay this way, and we're just gonna, you know, you know, will I take action? Will he take action? I don't know. Or will we just become strangers with memories? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But I realize how important mental strength and emotional resilience is to get through these sorts of issues. And so, taking it all the way back to the plunge, I'm really thankful. And I didn't know when I did the plunge that I was going to end up referring to that and using that experience and that I would need that to help me get through the shit that was going on in my life. And so, you know, everything happens for a reason. And so I think the reason, and it's funny because when I wanted to take the plunge, the first date I wanted to do it, I ended up having to cancel. And then, and I was going to do it with a couple friends of mine. And then I figured out that I was off on New Year's Eve. And so I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I scheduled it, and none of my friends could do it with me. And I was like, I'm going to do it alone. I'm going to do it with my friend, you know, who I know from the gym. And it worked out, and I did it. And I'm so glad I did it when I did, because it really helped me get through the last couple of weeks of weirdness and awkwardness and just like not knowing, you know, and not knowing what to do. It's a weird place to be, you know. So I would just say mental resilience and mental strength and emotional resilience are really important, and they really help you get through some odd times, you know. I don't, what do you guys do? What do you do? The thing is I feel like a lot of us, when someone pulls away, we chase, right? And I did that for years. Why not? And that's the thing, like, why not? I don't have ego, you know? Like, I'll chase somebody, I don't care. It's like, if I was really into that connection, you know, I would chase. The difference with this is it's fairly new. It's been 2 months of talking to somebody, and there hasn't been a whole lot of milestones, you know? So it's not something like, you know, with King Fuckboy, 2.5 years. Of course I chased that, you know, that's time. We spent time together, you know, yes, I did. Even with the last person, you know, it was 6 months. And yeah, I don't think I chased him either. We argued about it. I think that was the first time when somebody told me something, and then I said, well, nope, not gonna happen. So, you know, it's interesting. I think it's a little interesting, but we'll see. We'll see what happens here. It's very much the unknown, and it's very current, so I don't know what's going on, but I think if I have any advice to impart on y'all from this experience, is work on your emotional resilience and work on your mental strength. And really, if you find yourself in this sort of situation, which we often do, it's not the first time this has happened in a connection for me. So really, really try to remember who you are and what you bring to the table. And then try to look at things more objectively versus just looking at what you think you're losing. Also look at what they're losing, right? Because it's you and everything that you bring to the table. And then that sort of evens the playing field. And then once the playing field is evened out, then you can really look at past actions that you've done and they've done and past behaviors and determine, okay, maybe I have been a little aloof. Maybe I am the one that needs to reach out. Or, okay, no, I've done a lot. I've been, you know, reciprocative. I've been, you know, vulnerable. I'm just gonna wait and see what happens, you know? And I think until you can see yourself on that even playing field with someone, then you will continue to go through these patterns and have these moments of chasing someone and these sort of toxic cycles a little bit. Evening the playing field was mind-blowing for me. I don't know how much bourbon I drank to get there. I don't know what country songs I was singing to get there, but I got there. And that's just how I process things, you guys. Like, I'm sorry, that's just how I process things. I read a book, drink my bourbon, listen to my country, or whatever it is I want to listen to, and that just is how I process things. And I think that's key, is to really, that's why they say, like, you can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, you're going to constantly think you're not deserving or worthy of anything. And it's like, no, man. Like, and it's not coming from like an ego place where I'm like, no, I'm above that. No. It's just me knowing what I want long term, and me knowing what I bring to the table, and me knowing what I've done, and then making a conscious decision. I don't know. What do you guys think? This was a long episode. But, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We'll see. It is what it is. All right, you guys, that's all I've got for you today. If you haven't done so already, please like me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, and like, follow, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you are a time passer, if you enjoyed this episode, you enjoy listening to me rant about my love life, or lack thereof, share this episode with at least one person. I would greatly appreciate it. I think that sharing the episode, share it on your socials, share it with a friend who may be going through something similar. I would greatly appreciate that. That's like the best thing that you guys can do for me and do for the show. It's a great way to show your support. All right, you guys, remember what I say. Stay authentic in everything you do. Like, authentically think about yourself too. Think for as much as you want to think about somebody else, think about yourself too. Think about yourself. Don't forget who you are. Stay authentic. I will see you next time. Bye.